In January 2018, just days after gospel legend Edwin Hawkins was laid to rest, an anonymous blogger dropped a bombshell allegation that sent shockwaves through the gospel community. The claim that the man behind "Oh Happy Day" had pursued them as a teenager and introduced them to homosexuality. The accusation came from someone claiming to be a gospel artist, posted on a site called Scandal Media, but the person refused to reveal their identity. No evidence, no corroboration, no police reports. Just an anonymous voice speaking when the accused could no longer defend himself. But before we dive into what we know and don't know about these claims, let's talk about who Edwin Hawkins really was, the empire he built, the fortune he left behind, and what happened to his family after his death. If you want the full story on one of gospel music's most influential pioneers, make sure you're subscribed because this is a story that goes far beyond the headlines. Edwin Reuben Hawkins was born on August 19, 1943, in Oakland, California, into a family where music wasn't just a hobby, it was a way of life. By the time he was 7 years old, Edwin was already playing keyboards for his family's gospel group. This wasn't some casual church gig. This was serious musicianship at an age when most kids were still learning to read. The Hawkins household was filled with the sounds of traditional gospel, but Edwin had something different in mind. He could hear the future of gospel music, and it sounded nothing like what was playing in churches across America. In May 1967, Edwin founded the Northern California State Youth Choir of the Church of God in Christ. He recruited Betty Watson as co-director, and together they assembled nearly 50 young voices who were about to make history. They needed to raise money for a convention trip, so they decided to record an album. It was supposed to be a simple fundraiser, nothing more. They recorded it in a church basement on a shoestring budget, pressed a few hundred copies, and called it, "Let Us Go Into the House of the Lord." One of the tracks on that album was an old hymn that Edwin had completely reimagined with a rock and soul arrangement. It was called "Oh Happy Day." A local radio DJ got his hands on a copy and started playing "Oh Happy Day" on his show. The phone lines lit up. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. This was gospel music, but it had a beat you could dance to, a groove that felt alive, and a joy that was absolutely infectious. Before anyone knew what was happening, "Oh Happy Day" was climbing the charts. Not just gospel charts. Pop charts. The song peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1969 and went to number 2 in the United Kingdom. It sold more than 7 million copies worldwide and became one of the biggest gospel crossover hits in history. Edwin Hawkins had just changed gospel music forever, and he wasn't even 30 years old yet. That first Grammy Award came in 1969 for Best Soul Gospel Performance. Edwin would go on to win 3 more Grammys throughout his career, including one in 1972 for "Every Man Wants to Be Free" and another for "Wonderful." He wasn't just making hit records. He was mentoring the next generation of gospel artists. Richard Smallwood, one of gospel music's most respected composers and producers, credits Edwin Hawkins as a major influence and mentor. Donald Lawrence, another gospel heavyweight, has spoken publicly about how Edwin guided his career. When these giants of gospel music talk about standing on someone's shoulders, they're talking about Edwin Hawkins. But Edwin didn't just want to make stars. He wanted to create a system that would educate young gospel artists about the business side of music. Too many talented singers and musicians were getting exploited by record labels and managers who saw them as cash cows. Edwin founded the Edwin Hawkins Music and Art Seminar, a program designed to teach aspiring gospel artists everything from vocal technique to contract negotiation. He wanted them to own their masters, understand their royalties, and build sustainable careers. This wasn't just about music. This was about economic empowerment for black gospel artists who had been shut out of the financial benefits of their own creativity for generations. When it came to his personal life, Edwin Hawkins was intensely private. He never married. There are no public records of children. No long-term relationships that made it into the press. In an industry where everyone's business becomes public knowledge, Edwin managed to keep his romantic life completely out of the spotlight. Some people saw this as admirable discretion. Others wondered what he was hiding. But the fact remains that throughout his entire 5-decade career, there were no scandals, no tabloid stories, no messy breakups that became gospel gossip. He poured everything into his music and his ministry. By the time Edwin Hawkins died, his net worth was estimated to be between $1 million and $5 million. That might not sound like much compared to pop stars, but in gospel music, where artists often struggle to make a living, it represented a lifetime of smart business decisions and residual income from his catalog. "Oh Happy Day" alone generated royalties for decades. Every time that song played on the radio, in a movie, or in a commercial, Edwin got paid. He also earned money from touring, album sales, production work, and his seminars. He understood the business, and he made sure he was compensated fairly for his contributions. On January 15, 2018, Edwin Hawkins died at his home in Pleasanton, California. He was 74 years old. The cause of death was pancreatic cancer, the same disease that had taken his younger brother Walter 8 years earlier. According to his publicist Bill Carpenter, Edwin's health had declined significantly in late 2017. He had been working on plans for a new album, but his condition deteriorated too quickly. He died peacefully at home, surrounded by family. The losses in the Hawkins family have been devastating. Walter Hawkins, Edwin's younger brother and also a celebrated gospel artist, died of pancreatic cancer on July 11, 2010, at the age of 61. Walter had his own successful career and was known for hits like "Goin' Up Yonder." Then came Edwin's death in 2018. And just 2 years later, on June 12, 2020, their eldest sister Carol Hawkins passed away. The family that had given so much to gospel music was being torn apart by death. As of now, Edwin's surviving siblings include Fed Dye, Daniel, and Lynette Hawkins Stevens. Walter's children, Walter Jamie Hawkins Jr. and Tristan Hawkins, continue to carry the family's musical legacy forward. Tramaine Hawkins, who is married to Walter, remains one of gospel's most respected voices. The Hawkins name still means something in gospel music. It represents excellence, innovation, and a commitment to pushing the genre forward while staying rooted in faith. After Edwin's death, the family held celebration of life services in February 2018 at Harbor Light Church in Fremont, California. Instead of flowers, they asked people to donate to Music and Arts Incorporated, the organization Edwin had founded to educate young gospel artists. Even in death, his focus was on building up the next generation. Edwin Hawkins was inducted into the Christian Music Hall of Fame in 2007, recognition that his peers understood his significance. He didn't just have a hit song. He changed the sound of gospel music. Before "Oh Happy Day," gospel was largely confined to black churches and didn't cross over into mainstream culture. After "Oh Happy Day," gospel music had a seat at the table in pop culture. Artists like Kirk Franklin, who would dominate gospel in the 90s and 2000s, owe a debt to Edwin Hawkins for opening those doors. The anonymous allegation that surfaced after his death remains just that, an allegation without evidence, without corroboration, and without any way for Edwin to respond. What we do have is 50 years of documented work, countless testimonies from people he mentored and worked with, and a legacy that transformed gospel music forever. Edwin Hawkins left behind a complicated legacy, like many public figures do. There are questions that will never be answered and claims that can never be verified. But what cannot be disputed is the music, the influence, and the empire he built from a church basement recording that was supposed to raise bus fare for a youth choir trip. That's the story of Edwin Hawkins.